A bug flying in the air. Still pretty. I was stupid. When I was going to university, I was taking a lot of ceramic classes, and when I was in those classes, I would always save little bits of clay that I was working on my projects that were drying out, and then I would put them in this container so that I could reclaim them one day. I ended up just like slowly saving tons and tons of things, like just little bags that are full of like just like a tiny bit of clay. And then I also had like all the freshmen and sophomores give me their little bits of clay that were left over at the end of the semester if they weren't going to continue on with ceramic classes. So in time, I ended up getting this huge bucket full, which is probably like a couple 100 pounds of clay, and I'm finally having time to reclaim it. So I made a plaster bat that I can dry the clay on. And today I'm just going to separate all the clay from the bags, kind of break it apart, and then put them in a container that I'll fill with water, so that way in a couple days I can start drying it on the plasterboard and then wedging it and getting to use the clay again, so that way I don't have to like buy a bunch of bags of clay. I can just use all the clay from my university time. So there seems to be 3 different clay bodies. There's a white clay body, a red, and then kind of like a mixture of the two in the middle. A lot of this clay is still like just a tiny bit. Actually, that's really wet still. So I'm gonna have to, oh my gosh. The ones that are wet like this I can break apart, and then the ones that are already like rock hard, I just have to take a hammer to break apart, because you don't want to leave these big chunks in here when you put the water in. This stuff is a bit more like, I would say, almost bone dry, but I'm gonna let that dry for a couple more days as well, where this will probably take like a week to 2 weeks to dry out. This will probably just be like 2 days. And then this is a mixture. Some of this clay is still really wet and some of it is almost bone dry. So I'll come back to this stuff. Okay, I actually changed my mind. When I was at university, we didn't ever let it fully dry. We just always put it back into this big like 20-gallon bucket. And then we would just take the clay from there and throw it in the, not extruder, in the pugger. So, is it called a pugger or is it a pug mill? Oh my gosh, I don't remember. Anyway, so I don't obviously have one of those, but I still think that I can get by with using the clay that's still pretty wet. So all I'm gonna do is just have the water go up until almost the top where the clay is at, and then I'll check on it in a couple days, which it's gonna be fine. So I need to just shut up and get going and doing this. So since there's a ton of air pockets obviously where the clay isn't like fitting together, I'm not gonna fill it all the way to the top because this will start sinking down slowly. But it's gonna just start absorbing all the water back, and then I can come back in a day or two, stir it up a bit, then let it sit a bit longer, and then it should be all set. So pretty easy, honestly. So a couple weeks ago, I did a small prep of some other clay I had that was fully dried out. This is like new clay that wasn't from my university, but that I've been using since I graduated. So I filled this all up, put some water in it. It's really been a couple weeks. So I made a plaster bat like 2 weeks ago, and this is what you want to put your clay onto that's going to help dry it out evenly. So I'm just going to grab a bunch of this, put it in the center area, kind of like smooth it out, and then I'll check back on it in 2 days as well when I come back to check on the other stuff too. Sorry, there's a bug flying in the air. I think the only thing that's like really disgusting about this part is like there is gonna be mold. When you're working with clay, you just kind of have to deal with it, but It smells horrible. So you just want to make sure after this is done drying on the bat, you're really wedging the clay up a ton. Otherwise there's going to be lots of air pockets. Just trying to break it up. This helps me see that next time I'm doing this, I definitely need to break the things up more or just mix this bucket before I put it onto here. So it's been about 48 hours now. I haven't checked on it yet. It definitely is firming up a decent amount. It's still pretty... I just broke it. I was worried about this plaster bat being a little too small, and I just proved myself right. I should have thought this through. Oh, whatever. Okay, so while this plaster board is obviously finished in multiple pieces, I got this, pretty much all the plaster off of this, so I can still salvage all this clay. I'll just have to make another plaster board. I was stupid, so paying the consequence. So I don't have a wedging table. I'm gonna use this laminate countertop that I have laying around. I think it should work okay. Clay is definitely still pretty wet because I didn't flip it before I broke the plaster. So it might be a bit tough to wedge, but we are just going to figure it out as we go. Okay, so I've been talking to the camera for the last 10 minutes without realizing that I wasn't recording. So I have no idea where I left off, but I've just been wedging smaller bits of clay and then cutting them in half after I'm done wedging to make sure that there's no air pockets in here. Like there's an air pocket here when I cut it, same as here. And you can tell that these aren't wedged very well just by the spiraling and the clay bodies that were mixed into the bucket. So I'm just gonna wedge each of these just a little bit more and then they can be used for later. One final check just to make sure this one's good. Still like a lot of interesting patterning, but I'm kind of interested to see if this would show up in my clay work, which I'd be totally fine with. So I think I'm gonna leave this one as it is. And then in future ones I'll focus on mixing it more in the bucket before I put it on the plaster bats to dry. And then I think that'll help this. Okay, for the time being, I'm just using the 3 bigger pieces that broke as the plaster bat. I shouldn't be doing this because any of these loose particles that get into the clay could potentially blow up my clay when it's in the kiln. So I just gotta be really careful when I'm peeling this stuff off that I'm not getting any of the loose particles of the plaster in there. I'll make another plaster bed that's a lot thicker next time, and yeah, it's gonna be all good. I'll probably make videos in the future about the clay that I have down there that's reprocessing that I put in the big bucket, but I think I'm just gonna keep this video as this for now, just so you saw the whole process. And I'm looking forward to seeing what I make with this clay, so we'll see in the future what projects come from it. Thanks for watching if you did, and have a great rest of your day.